yeah, I'm still waiting for the meeting to start. I waiting here on Zoom to get in. I did send a text to somebody to make sure that the meeting was going to be on Zoom and was still going to happen. I have not heard back. We'll let you guys know as soon as I know anything. Okay, so the Zoom meeting has started. I'm just waiting to get let into the meeting, and then I'll switch over to that. Thank you.
The clerk's not muted and Suzanne's iPad is not. Oh, yes, it's muted. I guess that's muted.
Ian just connected.
Okay.
Why on some of these people it doesn't give us the option.
So don't. Muted.
This isn't on yet.
The owl hasn't turned on its eyes.
Is there a switch on it?
Come on.
A mute button, we don't want that.
There's a his eyes come on.
So
Bobby?
that one
Mr. Owl's not. He's not connected. It flashed red. I wonder if that means it's muted or something.
Your default speaker has changed to Owl Meeting. Your microphone has changed to Meeting Owl. And I know why.
There we go.
It was the
The little camera wasn't on.
Okay.
turning
Okay,
on tech
so
support.
we're recording. Have we started over here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bothell. Commissioner Bothell.
Present.
Commissioner Nosker.
Present.
Commissioner Glover.
Here. Okay. I missed the prayer. My computer's still on. Suzanne? I can't remember who did it last, so go to my right.
God, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and we pray that you'll be with us as we do the work that we do. Pray that you'll watch over us and help us to make the proper decisions. Pray that you'll be with our employees, with our residents, with our visitors, that the county may be blessed. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? I know we have one addition for sure. A letter of support for the clerk's department to apply for a grant for electronic recording technology. So.
And what is it that you're going to electronically record for these meetings?
No, it's updating the old records.
Oh, okay.
So we'll get to that part. Do we have minutes from the previous meeting?
No.
Okay, having no minutes, we'll move on to public comment. Is there any comment from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Is there anything for the consent agenda?
I have a whole list, a lot of it's stuff that's been pending, so it's things pending that are still, and see how far we are on those. So do you need me to go down all?
Well, you
12
can
or
do it
14
now,
of them?
or we can catch it under, when we get into the general business administrative items.
That's fine, because I just, a lot of it's sort of cleanup.
Okay.
Where'd you find the agenda?
It was, she sent it out, or Bobby did. I don't know when it was sent out. It was Friday. Okay, that takes us down to county official and department head reports.
We haven't voted to approve the agenda or anything yet.
The who?
Agenda?
Approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the
I thought we'd done
agenda
that.
as
Okay, I'm sorry.
correct, or as
That's okay.
amended.
Got
Second.
a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comment moving through. Consent agenda, there's nothing on the consent agenda to approve. County official and department head reports. I think we can. Well, Cindy, if you want to do it there, that's fine. It's just a request for a grant. Do you have anything to say about it before we?
Just a formality, and it doesn't have to be, but they just recommend that a letter of support from the commissioners.
Okay. You haven't had a chance to read this. Do you care to read it? Comfortable?
Well, and this is a grant that,
In the recording, we charge $3 for any document to be recorded. $1 stays in our surcharge account here in Rio Grande County. $2 of that goes to the state, and then they have grants to the smaller counties typically to do some of their back scanning, their digitizing equipment, that sort of thing, that we can't afford to do.
and so how much would the grant cover? The majority of it?
Oh, yeah. It will be nothing out of county general. It will strictly be out of the surcharge account that is, what's it called? It's a special account.
Okay.
It's got a name, but the total grant amount is going to be $94,819.66. We're looking at taking $7,507 from the Rio Grande County Technology Fund, but you can't do anything else with that money, so.
Well, I think that
Jane, did
sounds
you want to see
wonderful.
this or you already aware of it? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and sign this letter of request from Cindy for the grant she's looking for the digitalization.
And I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. Hearing no objections, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we want a copy of this for our files or is it just?
I'll send a copy of the entire grant once it's all put together.
Here we are.
Is this part of this e-filing?
PRTB.
I think that's what, did you send over earlier?
This is the state monies,
This week, okay.
but we got problems with the one here, but we'll talk about
Okay.
that.
Yeah. When you have time, call me.
Are there any other county official and department head reports before we move on to general business and administrative items? Okay, under general business and administrative items, first item under that is CVRF. Any new news on that? I can give you a report on what I've learned.
I did find the one application that Jody had mentioned. It might be somebody we'd like to contact.
Okay,
I didn't know on that one. And then I had another one that might be that interviewed for county administrator. Just trying to find some names, but she's employed right now. So I didn't know if that might be some that you want to look at or not, or,
for the CVRF,
yeah, position, yeah.
okay.
Did you receive the, sorry, I'm bringing it, the updated agreement that I sent out on, draft agreement that I sent out on Friday? For CVRF.
I did, I haven't read it.
Incorporating Tony's recommendations.
I didn't see it.
Oh, that was the paragraph F and all that.
Yes. Well, wait a minute, maybe none of you did receive it because it's sitting here in my outbox.
Well, at least didn't lose it.
Well, and now it says I can't change, can't send it.
Okay.
I mean,
Did you want to see, these are the old apps. These are just copies.
There, now you guys should have it. Sorry. You know if it doesn't show.
There it is.
Oh,
Yeah, I got it. And what part was it that you changed?
sorry, let me elaborate here. So paragraph F initially indicated that the funds would be allocated pursuant to Exhibit B. What I've done based on Tony's recommendation was to remove Exhibit B altogether and any reference to what was Exhibit B. And essentially now it provides, as opposed to that it would be required to be divvied up proportionate to the demographics of the county. Change the language that the parties endeavor to distribute CARES Act funds in as fair and equitable manner as possible, proportionate to the percentage of the county population residing in its cities and towns, as well as the unincorporated portions of the county. So that still contemplates taking the proportionality into account, but not necessarily maximizing or quantifying the exact amount that would be allocated to each. And then I did add another paragraph, which is now I, that says all eligible reimbursement requests must be invoiced by the municipalities to the county on a monthly basis and shall be received by the county buyer before the 10th day of each month. And then I went through, obviously renumbered paragraphs, but renumbered the exhibits to account for the fact that that Exhibit B had been, the demographic information from the state had been removed.
Okay.
And so I sent out the Word version just in case there are any additional changes that need to be made. The previous version that I sent out was in PDF form and included all of the other attachments. Did not reattach those exhibits just yet until we discuss the content more.
Okay, has anybody else picked up anything on CVRF? If not, I've got a little vision for you.
Keep moving the E up here so it comes back to you.
I take it that's a no?
Yeah,
I think that's enough.
Okay, did some discussion. One of the things CVRF does provide for is we can do business type grants. So I checked around to find out what kind of other programs are out there. And basically, there's enough out there right now that this would probably not be beneficial to the county. They just released a new program. They're just kicking it online today called the Energize Colorado, called a GAP program. $10,000 grants up to $25,000 loans for a total of $35,000 for businesses. That it's scored. There's probably $250,000 or better coming into the valley. It'll be handled by either OEdit, Tom Monaco, or through the Small Business Development Center. And they'll be doing the scoring and the approvals. Anybody that's already accessed one of the other programs like payroll protection or some other loan programs would score lower. It doesn't make them ineligible. You have to demonstrate impact. And it's hard when some businesses actually saw a small growth over last year, but they were already growing at a fairly good trajectory. And then when COVID hit, it flattened. So maybe their July sales are still higher than they were last July, But had it not been for COVID, they would have been even higher because they had to close the stores or whatever. So they can apply, they just may not score as well, but there's ways to do all that, and the Small Business Development Center will help them with it. Most of the other business assistance funding has been handled through the banks in conjunction with the Small Business Administration, which had its own pot of money for COVID. So the Chambers of Commerce are aware, Urged is aware, the Development Resources Group is aware of this program. They're doing an outreach program, papers, social media, and what have you. And I did call DRG today and say, where are you? And I said, do you need this money? And they said, we've already been approached by Alamosa County and basically told them, no, we've got more than we can handle right now. And he recommended, that was Kevin Wilkins, that we focus on the municipalities in the county and whatever expenses are eligible that we could spend the money on here. So I was thinking about it. We know we received some requests from 3 of the towns. Okay, that we need to go, if we want to do this, go through and vet them, make sure they fit the form. I think that Tony provided us last week as far as submitting the request. Kevin's advice is don't write a check until you've got the check. I know it's on a reimbursement basis. The towns have already spent some of this money, so that would be eligible. And so we could submit that. If DOLA approves it, then we're not fronting the money. We wouldn't reimburse the towns until we saw the money.
Yeah,
I don't
it
think
works
that's
that way.
right. I think you have to,
We have to pay for it up
The-
front.
the money has to come from us.
Well,
It's us that's being.
we're
reimbursed.
acting as fiscal agent for these towns. So at that point, we're almost a pass-through. If we were doing it ourselves and handing out money or doing whatever we're doing, we'd have to spend it and get it back. The problem with DOLA is they have never provided clear guidance on this. And so I asked, where's the problem? Is it local? He said it's the very top. And we get no clear guidance. So Alamosa County is looking at trying to hire interns for the county for a short period of time, college students or whatever, in public administration or whatever. We can obviously hire an administrator for this. And the county can use the money for COVID-related unique expenses. And so the question then became, I know we have several COVID-related grants, ELD grant and others. I don't know where the 214s go for reimbursement. We've been keeping track on 214s. Do you know who do we submit those to for reimbursement?
Right now, we're not using them for any of our funding. The idea was that if we did have to wait to get reimbursed for staff time, that we would need to do that through FEMA.
That would be FEMA funding.
It could be.
But I mean, that at the
Right now, that's kind of our
last resort.
last hope for reimbursing those funds. All of that time also qualifies, the time that would qualify under FEMA qualifies on CVRF. So what
Okay.
you're saying is,
So we could take
Yes.
and make that application. What we obviously can't do is apply to multiple agencies. We have to go one at a time and see who offers reimbursement. So for those 214 expenses that have already been expended, we could do it. I don't know if the jailhouses incurred extra stuff.
we need to talk to them about that.
Okay, they didn't submit 214s, I'm assuming.
I know that Courtney I understand that Courtney had as part of her PIO responsibilities, otherwise I'm not sure.
Okay, but if the jail, or the sheriff's department had COVID-related expenditures, we could submit that for reimbursement under the CBRF.
Yes.
You sent over, I think it's somewhere on my desk, that you sent over a list for like the plexiglass and all that construction. 4,000 or something.
I had some face shields and stuff like that.
Okay, so you have yours, any of the departments may have something they spent money on. We know that the Treasurer's Department, somebody paid for that shield down there. I know the judicial system stands alone, and so we weren't paying for any of their stuff that I'm aware of. But anything like that, we could apply under CVRF. We've already spent the money, so that would be a fairly quick turn. Anything in addition, like hiring an intern, somebody to just handle this grant. But the recommendation was don't get into the business recovery side of this. There's plenty out there already. There's a lot of programs already on the books. And given the short time frame we have to do this, it would be very difficult. And I was thinking initially that the cities would take this on and then come to us and say, okay, we know so-and-so down here. But I've heard nothing from the chambers. I've heard nothing from URGE about any kind of needs.
They've said that they're excited to get it out. They want to talk to the businesses about it. I know the Upper Rio Grande Economic Development Council is ready to help local businesses with the application and with the process, with what they need to turn in. So they want to partner with us in making sure that that gets out to
Okay.
the businesses.
Well, in that, if we do that, then we'll have to agree that we're going to do some sort of business assistance with some of these funds. We obviously are not going to spend $900,000 based on the expenses that have been turned into us and whatever we can demonstrate in the county. And but since the GAP or Energize Colorado funding is competitive, scored, there's only a limited amount of funds. If this board decides that they are willing to do that, and if we have somebody that will go out and do the outreach and make sure that the applications are submitted. But the issue becomes, if we do that, we're going to be writing checks and asking for reimbursement.
Right.
And that means the county's out there a little bit on this. And we run the risk of the vagaries of DOLA. And everybody I've talked to has complained about how DOLA is managing all of this. And there's been, they're overlapping and commingling their responsibilities with other state agencies. So the money might be coming from HUD, for instance, for some programs, but it's coming through DOLA/OEDIT, which is the economic development side of the state. And so you have people sitting in multiple meetings instead of having it very clear, the money's coming from this entity, going through this entity to the user. It's getting crossed up and it's created a lot of confusion. And the person who's in charge of DOLA is a fellow by the name of Rick Garcia. And apparently people have had trouble getting clear guidance from his office. So there is a risk. And since we have such a short time, the learning curve is probably, while it's steep, it's flatter than the time we have to get everything figured out. To actually do it, get the money out by the deadlines, do needs assessments, whatever it is. Ordinarily, the banks would be doing this like they do for the SBA and some of these other programs. And their clients, if they don't qualify for any of the programs that banks are handling, are being sent straight to this Energize Colorado program. But the banks aren't sending anybody to us at this point.
Sure. And the other counties that do have them, they've been listed. You've wanted this for a while. These are the other programs that are available for small businesses that are COVID-related programs. Those are the ones that businesses in Rio Grande County can qualify for, and I can email that to everybody.
You did email it to us?
I can.
Okay.
I just looked it up today. So the real difference is that the funds that you're talking about, those are funneled through different agencies. And the goal of this is that the local municipalities can have some say in determining how their economic response is run. So the county gets to come up with ideas, and the municipality, since we decided to work as this group, they also get to come up with different ideas on how to spend those funds. Most of the counties that have gone forward with applications in CVRF have done the smaller business loan grants. Sorry, not loans. Don't want loans.
Do we have a Do you have a sense of what the other counties have done and how they've handled it?
Yeah, so most of what I have found on the CVRF response for counties is that they did internally spend their funds and do their planning through December, but they've also released funds. The larger counties, some of them had towns or cities that didn't opt in like we did. So all of our towns in our city came together and decided to opt in together through the county. Others had some cities that didn't. So they would create a system for those that did, and the other towns are kind of handling their own response with their population-based amounts. But what most of what is happening is those direct grants. Some of the larger areas have a little bit more capacity for managing funds, so they're also doing things like helping food banks specifically, or some of the isolated or quarantined individuals, funding their needs during that time while they're isolated or quarantined. It does become an issue that if we go down to an individual specific problem, handing out funds, we don't have enough people to manage that. But managing the business grants, we could potentially do that. And the amounts that I suggested last week, those are just thrown out there to kind of work around. We can make it a bigger maximum. We can be a little bit more flexible with our requirements on that, our requirements on how much you apply for and what you need to demonstrate to do that. But that's been the main program that is the same across all of these counties that are putting the funds out, is that they're doing those business grants.
So yeah, business grants stand alone. That's not assisting families that are isolated because of COVID or something like that. That's kind of the social services or the community outreach or assistance side of it. And the business assistance is totally separate.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing that isn't covered in a lot of those programs is the home-based businesses and sole proprietors just working in their own business. So that has been excluded from some of the other funding and has been allowed in a lot of the CVRF response.
Do we know, so let's just say we had 20 home-based businesses. Somebody makes quilts, I don't care what it is. And they lost revenue or were impacted by whatever, they had expenses. They come and apply. And if we approve it, we have to pay them, write a county check for that, and then apply to DOLA.
So we're not going to have to apply anymore. We're doing the invoicing process. That's what ours is. So they would need to be able to provide receipts that the money that we're giving to them is actually going to be used, and it can be used since March. So if they can demonstrate that they've had a revenue loss, and they can also demonstrate that they've paid their mortgage, and really that's how they want to make up the difference. So they're going to send us their proof that they've paid their mortgage for the past 4 months. Then we're going to invoice for that amount to the
For the
state
mortgage amount?
once we've got that documentation. So we are going to check the documentation, and we'll be responsible for that, ensuring that this is an appropriate use of funds. It's not unallowable for any reason in federal spending rules.
And the turn time on the money?
On getting it back from the state, it's been said that that would be fairly quick, but we won't know till we do it.
And what fairly quick is still up for discussion. Is that a couple weeks, couple months, couple years?
So that's
No.
the federal spending, there are rules. So we've got to turn our invoicing back around within 45 days. And then they have, I cannot remember, but it's a little bit longer than 45 days in their rules to get the funds out after they've been invoiced for an appropriate and reasonable expense.
Month and a half.
When
But-
you say we have to do our invoicing within a month and a half, what about the stuff that happened in March that some of these cities have
So
submitted?
we're not going to put money out. We need to invoice based on our expenses as
Okay.
the county. So
And-
if we pay, then we'll invoice off of that.
And so the stuff that, like building the spit shields, if that was more than 45 days ago, does that mean we can still submit it?
Yeah.
Okay,
They made a retroactive program, but What I'm concerned about is the December 31st cutoff or 30th. And last week, I think, as you were explaining, that a lot of entities have already cut off their submission deadline. So they have enough time to process. What if we have something that happens on December 29th?
Nope.
We can't do it
Not with these funds. We'll have to figure something else out.
because we have to figure,
We'll need to know what we're doing with that money by November 30th.
So I was just say, you, in your last statement, last time you met with us, it was November 30th was the cutoff date. No, December 15th was what we could go through if we had a particular plan or dollar amount that we could apply for. Otherwise, November 30th, we're pretty much done.
Our
So
flexibility is through with that.
yeah,
but if we haven't spent it by, let's just say we spent it December 15th.
So I would imagine that we're going to have a little bit of flexibility as we get to the end of this. It's a lot of money for the state to spend in a very short amount of time. But right now, how it's written and what our plan would be is that we would have our plans in place fully by November 30th and know what we're going to spend for December at that point. If something else came up and we needed to request flexibility, that's the same with every grant. You talk to your grant manager, you try to work something out, you see if they'll approve it. They're gonna start making plans with those funds themselves though, for that last month, because they've got to get it spent by December 30th.
So it's one thing if we spent the money in the county or the municipality spent the money and now we're requesting reimbursement for them, for county municipal activities. But if we're doing a business assistance program, at that point, somebody's going to have to advance the money to the business before we request reimbursement.
Yes.
So let's say we did a $10,000 grant to the donut shop.
Mhm.
We are going to have to write in that check at some point. Now, if let's say we know by November 30th that we're going to do that,
Mhm.
and we write the check the 2nd of December. In theory, we have 45 days to submit that request for reimbursement after that point.
Right.
And they have another 45 days. So we're talking a 90-day reimbursement period. But do we have 45 days to submit the reimbursement request if we do it the 1st of December?
So we would still have time to submit that request.
No, do we
To
have
get the
45
invoice.
days? Or do we only have 30 days at that point?
We should still have our 45 days.
Isn't that where it goes through
Yeah.
March 31st or
The
whatever?
business will continue. So whatever work we do after December 30th, we're still not going to be able to pay for those efforts. So if
Explain that to me.
I was filling in an invoice on January 2nd, we're not going to be able to use CDRF funds to pay for my time to fill out that invoice on January 2nd. All spending needs to be done by December 30th. So we'll
And
have
invoiced.
small expenses. We'll have some small expenses that the county will have to figure out how to pay for that are related to staff to close out this grant. But all of the invoiced expenses, as long as that is finished, we're not paying for anything past December 30th, then we'll have time to invoice after that, and they'll have time to get us the check.
I have a question. When you're talking about businesses and paying their mortgages or whatever they might put in,
Yes,
then we'll have to issue them a 1099 and they will pay income tax on that, right?
for the grant. So those should still be grant funds. We're not contracting with them to provide any service.
But they are receiving federal money through the county. It's sort of like the PPP, the payroll protection, and also your stimulus check. You're going to pay income tax on it. It's not tax-free. So that's what these businesses that put in for all this mortgage and everything else, I'll have to be, if that is a case that they have to pay, we have to issue anything over $1,000, you have to issue at least mandatory 1099. Probably have to do it for any amount, but on this program. But if they have to pay income tax on it, they need to be made aware of, if they're applying, that if they get, like you say, $10,000 in rent, it will probably you need to find out if it's tax-free or if they have to pay income tax on it, because I think a lot of people think all this stuff coming from stimulus is free and they aren't going to pay taxes on it. And
We can ask that
Well,
specific question.
also,
Yeah, that'll be
when we,
important.
when we start talking about private enterprise businesses, it's more complicated than just submitting a form. You're in business, you own a store on Main Street. You're paying your mortgage and everything, but your revenue dropped off. You had to close down for a month. Okay, then you opened half-time for a month. So you end up looking back last year and see what you did in what would be considered a normal year and figure out how much you didn't make. And
Right.
even that number is speculative, because maybe you were expanding this year. Maybe you had a bunch of stuff you were going to do and you bought your inventory and now you're sitting on it and you can't move as much as you thought you could. And so that's where the Small Business Development Center or somebody like that can help advise people through the process to show, okay, this is what you can request. But it's not just that you paid your mortgage. It is, what did you lose? And you lost more than your mortgage and all these other things.
So we can set that amount there. based
Huh?
on- We can set that amount, so they can say, we were budgeted to have these expenses and this revenue this year. They can do their expected budget, their anticipated budget for 2020 as part of their documentation to show that they had a loss in revenue. And that amount is fine. We're still just gonna be able to, we have to submit actual invoices. We have to have all of that documentation that every dollar was spent. Nothing can be put into reserves, nothing, they can't hold on to any of the funds that would pass through the county. So anything that we would give to them, we would have to have an equal amount of backup documentation to show that it was spent.
Okay, so it was already spent, but I'm still shut down and we're approaching December 30th and the program runs from March to December 30th. So do I lose December? I can't claim that because I
So
haven't
no,
spent the
if
money
we've
yet.
already worked it out through the process and in your application, you said I'm going to, that you,
So it won't be an invoice, it'll be a projected expense, my mortgage payment, or utilities or whatever, insurance,
through December.
through December.
Yeah, so if they put that in their application, that's what they're gonna use, and we have all their documentation together, we could do that. I would anticipate that we're actually going to get applications. We're going to face more applications that have already this loss of revenue, and I've already spent this much to make up for it. I'm guessing that we're gonna have more applications that balance out when they give us the request, rather than waiting through, because it's gonna be their supplies, their staffing costs that haven't been covered by some other program, their utilities, their mortgage. So I would imagine that we're gonna be able to document that amount fairly quickly,
Okay. This is also available to nonprofits. We
if
can-
we decide.
Yes, it's, I mean, according to the DOLA guidelines.
Yes,
of
they're
nonprofits are eligible. So Sky High Stampede had to cancel the rodeo this year because of COVID. Could they apply to us for lost revenue?
So it would be the same thing, they would have to be able to demonstrate that they had actual expenses that we'd be able to invoice off of. So were there mortgage expenses or supplies or staffing that you've actually put money out for that we could reimburse? We
But lost
can't-
revenue is a separate item, not just expenses.
Sure, but it needs to be both. So
Well, what if it
order for
isn't?
us-
This is, I'm shut down. I don't have a mortgage.
Then that's not a qualifying program for this.
Okay, I haven't been able to find that in the documentation. That's where I'm having trouble.
So the part that I'm going off of for that is that we will have to have backup documentation all the way through. Those programs and specific items that are audited are gonna go all the way from DOLA to the business, if that's what we're doing, to ensure that those funds were completely spent out. So we wouldn't be able to have a case where we gave someone funds that they were going to hold on to for next year, or they were going to pass through themselves to someone else.
I'm focusing on the lost revenue component because that was one of the things they talked about was lost revenue, not just the expenses, but
Right.
lost revenue. So I lost 50% of my revenue,
Mhm.
but I kept my business open.
Perfect.
Okay. So all I can get reimbursed is what I actually spent on the business. I don't get reimbursed for the lost revenue.
Right. So you have to be able to demonstrate that loss of revenue due to COVID in order to qualify for that, to be reimbursed for those expenses. So I need to be able to show that you did have a loss in revenue because of these orders, because you could only seat 50% of the people in your restaurant, or for whatever reason. So that's the requirement, that's the intent of the thing.
Can
is to
you,
make
I mean,
that
I'm sure it's in the documentation, but I haven't run across it because I understood this in the grant program. It's just like this Energize Colorado grant. You're going to get scored, but you can say, look, I can't stay in business. I don't care what going forward if I don't get some money. It's not the idea is to help the businesses survive. So you paid your mortgage or not paid your mortgage, either way. Paying off your debt doesn't necessarily help you survive. That's the reason we're talking grants. If there are some businesses out here that if I went out and gave them a 0 interest loan to make up for everything they lost this year, they would not be able to stay in business because they could not repay the loan.
Right.
They can't recover the revenue. And that's why we're going back to revenue. If they made the revenue this year, they could have sustained. But just getting a free loan that they have to, in this case, pay back, and we're not talking about that here, they couldn't pay it back. So the philosophy was, part of the philosophy behind the Energize Colorado program, and I thought the CVRF money for business assistance was to give them a grant. This is to keep you in business. We don't really care how you ended up upside down, assuming you were trying to operate your business, but you got shut down. Okay. You paid your mortgage and all, so we give you the money back for your mortgage. That doesn't keep you in business. It just keeps you, the bank, a little further away from the foreclosure, but it doesn't keep you in business.
So we have the same requirements for ours, for most of the grants that we receive, is that they do have to be spent out and used in the grant year. So it's a similar idea. We're not supposed to buy paper in June for a grant program that's ending that isn't going to be used until July. We're supposed to be purchasing and using all of the funds within that grant period. That's pretty standard. I'm trying to find the audit mention in here. And we also need to make sure that anything that we would be improving, like I mentioned last time, is that it does have that 1 year life. So we won't be doing any infrastructure improvements that would be permanent. So only temporary improvements are allowed. Temporary measures to increase COVID-19 treatment capacity or improve mitigation. It's not for permanent improvements, like to a business changing. So putting up the temporary plexiglass screen is approved, yes. But if we were to add on another office that would then be used forever as someone's office, we wouldn't be able to use it.
Yeah, and this clearly spells that out, that you can't do infrastructure. You're not going to be able to build onto your restaurant, but you can put something out on the street where you can have a canopy and picnic tables and stuff like that, and it is covered.
I just feel like that's separate from the grant issue that John is discussing, though. John is discussing grants specifically, and you're talking about reimbursements for expenditures. So the reimbursement would come when, the county or the local government purchases something. But as I'm trying to listen to what John is asking, I think he's talking about grant programs. If the county were to administer a grant program, and I am not sure that based on what I have read from DOLA or the United States Treasury Department, that they've given a whole lot of guidance. And that's where I think the gray area is and that the county has to be very careful if they decide to do a grant program for business. What does that look like, and what could the county potentially be on the hook for if they provide money to a private business by way of a grant program? I don't necessarily think that there's anything that says it has to be for eligible expenditures or reimbursement for those. Of course, if the town of Del Norte submits an invoice to us, the town of City of Monte Vista does, or the county itself has expenditures, those all have to comport with those guidelines, but I'm not sure the grants do.
So when I did find it, it made me sad for that reason, but I'm struggling to find it. But I will. It's in this.
The other
document.
question I had, I know I don't want to sidetrack you, but I don't know where this, it's certainly not in the terms and conditions that DOLA sent out, and it's nothing in the treasury guidance, this November 30th date. Do you know where that's coming from?
So that's in the Q&A as well. That is. Local governments must submit expenses incurred since March 1st, 2020 to DOLA by November 30th, 2020 for reimbursement. Local governments will need DOLA pre-approval for reimbursements for expenses incurred between December 1st and December 30th. And
Seems like a kind of a big deal when it's 1 month out of 8, and it's not specifically listed in the terms and conditions of the opt-in.
oh, I found that one so easily. I can't
I
find
think
it.
that's part of the reason we're having this frequently asked questions sheet is there was so much confusion around it. The counties couldn't figure out what they could and could not do, and mainly they want to stay out of trouble. And the problem wasn't at the federal level. It was at the state level, because this money was handed to the states, and the state decided how to allocate these funds. Originally, if you recall, the governor wasn't going to give the small counties anything. He was giving it all to the big 500,000 and above counties. There was enough kickback on it that, okay, we'll give you some money, but it came out with really, really insufficient guidance. That's why you've got a 3 or 4 page frequently asked questions thing, questions coming from the governments. And I still disagree that the intent is we can only grant people, businesses, money to cover expenses they've already incurred.
I think we can plan forward that the expenses would be incurred, but those expenses would have to be incurred by December 30th.
Who's going to monitor that after December? It's an impractical system. You can't do it. Like you said, the county's going to have to eat it or beg for some sort of forbearance after December 30th for us to even close out the grant.
So there will be some staffing certainly to close out the grant.
Right.
Yeah.
So each one of those needs to be spelled out. Will we get paid for it? Will we not?
And that will depend on how much we try to change in December and how much of the invoice.
We should have, I would think we have to have the answer before we go into it. And they should be willing to provide it. And if they can't,
So that would be on us. If we were gonna say that no one's allowed to work on this past December 30th, then we would just have to have our finals required by then.
okay, from a grant management standpoint, I understand it. From the intent and the community support side of it, it doesn't work. As I said when I talked to you last week, one of the reasons I got a little alley is I've talked to business owners. And what I'm hearing is they don't want to touch it because they're afraid they're going to get bit. So, and I touched on it again, this grant runs through December 30th. Do the expenses for a business run through December 30th, or is it only until from here until November 30th? Because we can't invoice for an expense that has not been incurred.
We
Right?
can
But they-
invoice for our expense that was incurred.
But everybody gets to have a plan, right? And they present this plan that says, these are my planned
Nobody knows.
expenses, and I plan
I don't know
these
what we're
expenses
talking
for December, and those are
Awesome.
eligible, right?
I'd say
Right.
stop until we get a
It's
clear
not
answer.
going anywhere.
Well, we had.
a lot of this, I mean, Town Center sent in and they go through how much public health expense and for protective equipment for police officers, social workers, others. Then it goes into how many individuals are working at $12 an hour for distributing PPE, educational materials through December 31st. Also for cleaning rooms and delivering food to quarantined individuals. They've got 1,200 in for that till December 31st. Just training, education, food delivery to the elderly, and grants for small businesses. They have so much money, and then, but it all goes through, they're asking up to $11,000 through December 31st. So I don't know, that's what they've come in with already.
The next question would be, did you go out and hire those people to do these things? Or did you shuffle resources and were you already going to be paying those people $12 an hour to do whatever else? And now they're doing cleaning and
Right.
so.
But my argument on this thing is the same thing it's been all along. We have these things, these 4 requirements for the 4 municipalities. Right here's a copy of all 4 of them. And we've had them since June. And this one here, I mean, these all have numbers on them. Now, are we going to reimburse them with like we opted into? Because if we are, we probably ought to get along and get this part of it done. I mean, seriously, we need to prove it. We need to prove it, but we need to do something other than talk about what we can't do.
Right.
We need to get after this thing. These have to be repaid, or I would think so, since we agreed to it. Because I got all 4 towns involved.
The staffing question, we will have to go through what they've submitted, and the individual either need to be a new hire to deal with COVID, or they will need to be reassigned for at least 52% of their job.
Yeah, and I'm not
That's just
arguing.
a
I'm not
question.
arguing that. We have to prove them. I understand that, but they're laying right here in this folder that we all have had, and we haven't done a thing about it.
I think that's what that person needs to do. I point over there at that stack of resumes or whatever, but if whoever you put in that position needs to be ready to be able to go through those expenses and determine whether they meet that criteria.
And I'm fine with that, but we're sitting here talking about something, we need to get moving on this. We need to get somebody hired and get this done. This is already submitted. This isn't something that's a pipe dream down the road at the end of the year. This is actually submitted through the end of the year for the particular towns and stuff. So
Well, I don't think it can be submitted through the end of the year because they haven't incurred those expenses.
Yeah, they
But
have.
they can submit their
They can
plan.
submit their plan, yes, but I'm just saying, that we can't start paying them for things they haven't incurred.
No, and that's where I question the interpretation here. And I blame DOLA for not giving us clear guidance because they could lay it out clearly without having to go through a frequently asked questions section. But I'm going to give you an example, Tony, in terms of invoicing. Town of South Fork set aside $16,000 for business assistance. Okay, they spent the money. South Fork did.
Yep.
Okay, the businesses use that money to offer discounts to diners. Okay. How do we track what the restaurant's expenditure was?
What the restaurant expenditures were? So in that case, the discount went to the customers, so we're going to get that information from the town, so they put the money in.
The town put the money in.
So as far as the audit would run, the final steps, the final disbursement of grant funds would be through the town of South Fork.
Okay, so why can't we or Del Norte do the same thing? There's $20,000 Main Street, and we don't have to go to the business and say, show me your mortgage payment.
That is an awesome plan. We'll put it together. What I would recommend is any plan that we do like that is bigger, we do take that to DOLA and we suggest it. We say, what do you think about this plan? How's it fit? And then we get them to tell us that they don't see any problems with it, and then we move forward with it.
So,
That's different from a grant. So that's, yes, that's.
well,
our
it is a
action.
grant. We're granting them the money. They have to spend it how they said they were going to. So if Del Norte town, because we can't give it to the Chamber of Commerce, right? Well, I guess we could, they're a nonprofit. So the Chamber of Commerce says, we're going to take $100,000 and distribute it to the Main Street businesses in some form.
So if they distributed it to the Main Street businesses, then we're going to have to follow through with that same final point of disbursement backup. we're gonna have to have that business.
That business or the chamber?
The business documentation.
Okay,
So
but
we're not
the
doing
restaurants aren't
coupons.
giving you any documentation. They don't even have it. Okay,
Then it would be inappropriate for us to invoice off of that.
well, then we'll have to call Dan Hicks and say your plan didn't work.
But how do you know the businesses don't have it? They
Well,
should be doing their books, and they should have an idea of what their income flow and expenses are.
well, I don't know how they did it, and I don't know how they showed the discount, for instance.
Well, for the
guessing.
city to have it, my guess is, I don't know this as a fact, but that if they gave a 25% discount, then they must have given South Fork something that said the meals that we provided during this time period that we gave a 25% discount on were this much, and that's how the city.
It was more of a program than a grant. They didn't
Right.
work with each individual. They didn't cut a check for whatever expenses.
They just gave
to
them the
that
money
restaurant.
to offset.
They had a program that if you have this many coupons, we're gonna pay the difference. If you use our coupons, we're gonna pay that difference for the consumer. Which is complicated, and if anybody just finds.
And that's the kind of
audit-
stuff we're going to figure out. And you got different kinds of businesses. Okay, so let's take the laundromat who does all the sheets for the resorts. Their business was reduced by, let's say 30% this summer. How do we calculate what kind of assistance we're going to give them? We're going to pay all their mortgages? We're going to pay all their
So
electricity?
they can apply for either an amount that we set or for that amount of lost revenue that they can document somehow. So they're either gonna use multiple years and they're gonna show the increase over the multiple years with the anticipated increase that would have happened in 2020. They're gonna show profit and loss from last year to this year. They're gonna somehow document to us that we've had this much of a loss of revenue.
I understand that. So we have a loss of revenue. Now, what are we going to pay them?
We're gonna pay them for their amounts that they can invoice, that they can properly, we're gonna pay them. for
Which,
those
are we
qualifying
paying their
expenses.
mortgage? Or are we reimbursing them for a loss of revenue? Are we paying their expenses? Or we're making up their lost revenue?
We're paying expenses. We're gonna have to, they're going to have to invoice us. They're requesting those funds for us for qualifying expenses. The reason that that money is available is to address the loss of revenue.
So you have a loss, but you still had to pay your expenses, but you don't have the money coming in. This is the expenses I had paid, but I didn't have it.
Okay, so you cut back. Now, remember the PPP program was payroll protection.
Yeah.
Now, they could use that money for anything. They didn't have to write that check to that employee. It was called payroll protection, but people used it for a lot of different stuff, paying mortgages and doing
Well,
whatever.
it had utilities and some stuff in there too, but the PPE, you still have to show your payroll, what date you paid it and what the employee, and you didn't cut anybody, you didn't lay people off or you didn't hire any more. You have to submit that back
Right.
or else they make you pay it back.
Well, it was a loan.
Yeah.
And the condition of the loan on that PPP was not only did you keep the employees for that period of time that you were receiving the funds, but you had to keep them through September 30th, which you weren't getting any PPP money for.
Right.
Okay, but this is money given to us for business development or business recovery, or business assistance. And in the documentation I've read, not the FAQs, but the actual guidelines, I don't see anything in there that talks about just reimbursing them for expenses if they had a revenue loss, which is what I'm hearing.
They do have to have a documented revenue loss is what we've seen through all of the programs and what their guidance is recommending for us. The terms and conditions for our use of the funds aren't broken down to that level. They're not.
And that's why people are afraid of it. That's why the counties are. That's why people are recommending we not do the business recovery side of it because there's too many unanswered questions. I would think that if we were just giving grants to businesses, we could go out there and hand them all a $10,000 check, i.e. the Energize Colorado program.
So there
There
will be
you are.
requirements for that too.
Huh?
I am certain there will be requirements for that program as well.
There are, but it sounds like they're not as onerous as what I'm hearing right here.
So really what we need is a receipt that the funds were spent.
And then you still have to articulate that that was somehow a public purpose to get around the constitutional issue.
I think the states are and the feds have already kind of taken that one for us.
If we're saying it's economic support for the community. I
It's
guess
economic
that
support
might
for the community.
Go away across it.
And so I think,
That's not me questioning.
My interpretation is still, I don't have a specific answer, is that it's still a little bit of a gray area since it's not a pass-through program, since it is in fact the county paying that out, but I just.
can we find out, how do we find the answer to that?
I have an email into the Eagle County attorney who first posted on the listserv to see if they came up with a resolution, because he was the one that first pointed that out. And well, he was the one that pointed out the public purpose exception to see what their county is doing and maybe how they're getting around. So I don't have a response about Friday, but I was mentioning to Gene, I also just question whether we're debating this for the purpose of debating it if businesses aren't actually coming forward and asking for these grant funds. And does it make more sense for this board to focus its attention on the reimbursement component for municipalities as opposed to a grant program if that need isn't there? I don't know.
Well, we're, other than the question on the 25% discount in South Fork, blah, blah, those things are clearly eligible within the county or the municipalities that aren't business related, they're just COVID related municipal and county expenses. I would assume we could go ahead and start on that path, recover those monies. And if we want to build ourselves the media room and put in theater seating for it, apply for that, I guess.
We have
The advice-
for our stuff.
Right.
We have ours just alone.
The advice that I have gotten on any of those issues that I think is wise is to the extent that there are specific questions regarding like the South Fork 25% off program is to specifically ask DOLA that question in advance. Get documentation in writing of whether they've approved it or not approved it. And then rely and push back on DOLA if they decide to decline that because, well, just to make sure that whatever guidance you're getting from DOLA about that particular issue, they're owning it.
That comes under the concept of getting pre-approval for these expenditures.
Sure. In this case, it has been expended by the municipality. And I
You've got
think,
that
yeah,
one's already done.
if we were to ask, if we were to reimburse based on what they've submitted to us, is that something that DOLA would reimburse the county for? And try to get.
And get it in writing, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
You commit it, and you're not going to get it from your local DOLA rep because we can't even get an answer to FAQs. We have to go to their website.
And I don't, does anyone have those FAQs? I don't have. a
She
copy
has
of
them in her hand.
I handed them out last Wednesday.
Okay, I didn't get a copy of that.
But yeah, they're out there, but they're not official. Nobody's bound by it.
Well, and that's what bothers me is FAQs don't matter if they send you signed terms and conditions.
That's what we go with.
Right.
So we're not going to resolve this today, in my sense. I don't believe we are. Any further than let's try to get back the money that we've spent, if this is the best place to go get it.
Are you at least comfortable with the draft agreement, or is there a way for you to individually review that draft agreement so that I can then get the go-ahead to forward to the municipalities to see if that's something that they would sign in terms of the reimbursement protocol?
I think after you change the things that you changed, I I think it's fine.
I'm comfortable with it, Ryan.
So I would move that we approve that draft agreement. So Ryan can send it to the municipalities.
Second.
Okay, now discussion. I have a little bit. I have concern that we've only talked to the municipalities initially on this, and we agreed that we would act as fiscal agent, and they submitted some of these requests. Some of the requests probably fall outside the guidelines. I don't know for sure. But I would suggest that we have another conversation with the municipalities, but it's futile to have it if we don't have answers. Specific answers or specific commitments from DOLA as to how we can handle this program. And I know that based on the business owners, and I'm talking small business owners, storefronts, laundromats, little places that are afraid to do anything at this point to try to access assistance, other than what the banks have done through the SBA and things of that nature. But to walk in with this, and I said this last week, walk in with a program like this, show them the document, you got to provide this information, and just backing away. A lot of them aren't really sophisticated when it comes to this type of thing, and that's why they go to the Small Business Development Center to get guidance on it, or their banker. And the bankers, I don't think, are fully aware of this particular program. They're highly aware of anything that's been handled through the business side of things. But this particular one, I called around to different agencies. They didn't know. Ronnie Wisdom's very familiar with it, and that's why she's trying to get interns or whatever under these programs, and offered to set up a loan fund just to get the money spent to the DRG. And the DRG said no. And then we get complicated based on Tony's explanation, because if the DRG accepted it as a loan fund and they don't get it lent out, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you're being allowable. They wouldn't reimburse on that
Mm-hmm.
unless your loan term somehow ended before the expiration.
Right, and it would, because they would be the final recipient for the purposes of this grant.
Well, I don't know about how these things work, but it seems to me like if we go ahead and start submitting some invoices that we already have, like for the county clerk's office, and start getting those into the pipeline, that there's a lot of these little tweaks that you learn from a small bill that they say, oh, wait, no, you have to show something else or whatever it might be. And that you kind of learn exactly what they're asking for if it's outside of what a normal loan is. But if we can start getting some of those into the pipeline, that would be helpful.
And I mean, they're not gonna ask for a lot of this backup as we're regularly invoicing. The issue is that we have to have it on hand if and when we get audited.
Well,
Yeah.
just assume you're going to get audited. So we have FEMA money that is available to the county to reimburse certain eligible expenses. Is that right?
Potentially.
What do you mean
We're
potentially? Either we were told we had it, not either we do or we don't.
I'm not aware that we have any amounts or agreements. I know that we were, what I understood was that we were registered, we have an account with FEMA, but that is the extent of my knowledge for FEMA.
We don't know if we've ever submitted anything.
I don't think anything's been submitted to FEMA.
No expenses have been submitted.
They talked about it clear back when we had other people talking about it, but nothing's been submitted.
Okay.
Mainly because they were thinking, it's you could be 3-4 years from FEMA, so it's.
But
Well,
they
we
kept all
bought-
the
we-
documentation.
But we bought this stuff under some program, and that was before we knew about the CVRF. So what program
We
are we
bought-
buying this stuff for?
You're talking about the L's?
Yeah,
That was under anticipation of the CVRF.
no, we were told that there was money out there before CVRF. We were told that FEMA was an option and there were other options. And I started complaining about overlapping funding sources and the risk of double dipping. And so when we ordered this, when we started down that process and it got delayed for internal reasons, we were gonna do that, we were gonna do a TV screen, we were talking about it. DRG without CVRF funding under some program, not FEMA, put in a Zoom room. There was other funding out there. And what I asked for, and you gave me some, but you didn't have all the stuff. I was asking, what other grants do we have setting out here that will cover this? And which ones should we use for which particular item? It wasn't just FEMA or CVRF binary. There were more. And we called it the waterfall of money. It was coming in with, and nobody down here, we couldn't put the 5-person task force on like Douglas County or somebody else did to stay on top of all this. It was just our staff. And I was never given a report.
But you know for sure that this has been reimbursed?
No,
No,
nothing's
it
been
hasn't been
reimbursed to my
reimbursed.
knowledge.
Has it
But-
even been submitted?
No.
Nothing
No.
has been submitted on any of the grants because this is what we do. We have conversations about it. But the CVRF, we opted in, I believe it was June 30th. And so we have been anticipating being able to use that money for things like the OWL and like those items since June 30th. And so there's been a lot of these items that was the anticipated use.
The OWL discussion took place before Emily left.
No,
Yeah, because I was going to meetings where people were talking about using OWL and they had already bought them.
But
Really
was it
doesn't
bought,
matter.
yeah, was it bought during the time frame of this? If
Yeah, it
is,
was bought after
well,
March.
then we should just start pulling those invoices and getting them going to see as a test dummy to see if we get.
But
reimbursements.
again, what I'm hearing right now is we only had 2 programs that reimbursed the county, not public health, because they have their own separate money.
I think that's where the other programs were within public
Okay,
health.
let me finish, please. Okay, other entities were eligible for monies from other sources, and it was covered under CARES Act. This money we're talking about now, CVRF, was covered under CARES, but it went to the states. Okay, it went to the states. Our state sat on it and didn't even tell us about CVRF until much later, because they didn't know what they were going to do, because the governor was distributing all of that tranche of money to big counties, the urban counties. We got some freed up for the small counties, and that's why we got ours. And he followed a pattern that's been followed in other states. For instance, whatever county San Antonio is in, got like $71 million or something like that. Okay, but initially this money came to the states for the states to distribute. Our state gave us some of this money. And I don't know all the machinations and how that all worked, but there was other money coming directly from the feds, either through FEMA or perhaps other programs, excluding public health. That's a standalone issue. But there were other things to help out.
But it doesn't matter if you've not submitted to any of those other programs.
My point is,
So submit to CVRF and go forward.
we can do that if that's what, but originally the argument was this: take a look at all the grants that are available, or all the funding sources that are available to us, and tailor our submissions to the ones that best fit. Now, if we're down to this is the only one available, or FEMA, and the argument against FEMA was it's a 2 to 3 year lag time sometimes for reimbursement. That's been our experience. The other monies potentially weren't that long. But I had asked Trish and others in the office, can you give us a list of all of the grant programs that are available to us under COVID? And tell us what the terms and conditions, what's eligible expenses under those items, what can we do with it? Okay, then this one popped up with, that was the most lax in the sense that it proffered the ability to go out and do business assistance. The other grants did not, but they would cover COVID-related by OWL systems or PPE or whatever. Okay, but I never got the list. The closest I got is when I asked Tony, and she gave me a list, which included mostly, as I recall, the public health grants, and it included CVRF. We didn't talk about FEMA and things of that nature. Okay, but there was a whole stack of these potential grants out there, and we couldn't get clarity on it. And so that was my whole thing. Now, if we're down to, we've got to spend this, if we're going to use this money, we've got to spend it between now and now. And we go, finish paying for our owl system and all of that, whatever we do, I don't care personally. But what I'm hearing is either I don't know or maybe right now, maybe we can do this, maybe we can't. And I haven't heard clear answers on, other than I know that we can pay for the owl system out of some grant. But we're going to spend maybe $60,000-$70,000 of a $900 and some $1,000 pot of available money. And we're shirking away from potentially other eligible items that could really benefit our county. But we're basically saying we don't know. Now, if that's Dola's fault, then we'll talk to Dola. You're going to find out from Eagle County if it's even what their answer was, right?
I'm gonna find out, how they're articulating a public purpose, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For today at least, can we at least say, okay, we need to get the MOUs out, because all we have from the towns are the IGAs saying they want to opt in. That doesn't do it. So we need you to approve the the MOUs to the towns, get those out, and then up here, I need to find, Cindy's already submitted hers, and she's got all the invoices and everything with it for hers, and then go down to the other counties and the owls and all this, and then put one in for reimbursement to Rio Grande County as a starting thing, and at least get going on that. And then once we get the MOUs back, we can start going through what the towns have put in, because a lot of them have put in through December 31st estimated. What we could do is say, okay, give us as of this date all the invoices and stuff, and we'll try to do that. We, instead of trying to do it all in one check, we might have to just do it in steps and do it that way. But that would get us off dead center, at least getting some money out. And then we can keep researching for the businesses and everything else. But if DRG or small business or whatever is working with the businesses side, maybe we sort of refer them to them for right now until we can get clear answers for us. But I think at least if we get the MOUs out to the towns, we're moving forward on it.
I agree.
Well, we can submit our request. We already have a portal, don't we, Brian?
Yeah,
Yes.
so the portal is what the terms and conditions are, what we've received from DOLA after we opted into the portal. And that's
So
the letter.
the county has that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we could submit our request through the portal now.
Right.
For the county specific stuff.
Right.
Wait for the MOU from the other towns and go through and jury the request and figure out how we're going to handle those.
Right, and we can also basically handle it on a municipality by municipality basis as we get those MOUs back. So
We do have a motion on the floor that
Right.
you never voted on to get the
Correct.
MOUs out.
And I made the motion and Jean seconded it.
Motion before that.
Yeah.
I made a motion and Jean seconded it that we go ahead and approve Ryan's draft letter and send it to the municipalities.
So we were in the discussion portion of it, so long discussion. But so that's the motion right now, is to get the MOUs out to the municipalities. Any other?
We have to vote on the other one first, don't we?
What was the other one?
The one you said?
No, that was-
About Ryan's.
That's what I
That's
was
the same
talking
one.
about,
I think there's only one.
is that Ryan wrote a draft and I made my motion that
So
we
that you're-
approve his
Just for the
draft.
MOUs?
MOU.
Yeah, it's called a collaborative agreement, MOU, it's the same, but yeah.
Okay, that we approve Ryan's collaborative agreement that has been newly revised and send it out to the municipalities. That's a two-part thing.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Right?
Okay. So we back at it, and are you comfortable with what?
Yeah,
We're
and
doing now.
then once we get these back, then I think whoever's handling this would start taking what already's in. We can go ahead and I could start getting Bobby or somebody to pull anything that might be through your expenditures, the OWL, Cindy's expenditures. I don't know if the sheriff, I think, got him through a lot of his supplies and stuff, I think was donated. I don't know if they didn't indicate at the manager's meeting if he paid for it, but we can start reaching out to them and see if we can get invoices on all that and do that. But
I think they had some grant money too that they worked on that was outside of this.
yeah,
Because my election stuff was grant money that was
$240.
outside. Yeah, a 27-page, you're talking about muddling through. a 27-page contract for us to get $240.
It's cost effective.
By golly, it was worth it, wasn't it?
But the big counties, they had to do wash stations and shields and, big things.
Mhm.
We didn't need that much. Because I
So
couldn't use
the
the
house
shield in my
system was
office
purchased
for
on a
election
credit card?
expense.
I just want to check
Because
on
of
that,
the
and it
election.
was not.
Right.
That's
filed
right.
for any
Yeah.
reimbursement.
That's why it's repaired.
So that's gonna come through a different program.
That's what
This program.
she's got right now.
Okay,
And it's 1,000 something.
did we vote on that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
$1,270 that Cindy's already put in for. So,
Okay. So that's CVRF.
But my question, are you gonna hire somebody?
TBD
Mhm.
to be determined.
You kind of need to do that, get started right away though, don't you?
Well, it depends. If we're gonna stop here with these requests and give the rest of the money back, probably not.
I don't think that.
If we're going to continue forward, if it's a half-time, quarter-time, full-time position, and that was a discussion that I was hoping to have at some point, perhaps even an executive session over personnel, on how we can proceed going forward. I don't know.
However, the grant would pay for that person.
Yes.
Okay.
I also have been researching the publication issue regarding hiring or contracting with this person. I've also reached out to Dennis Hunt, because the county, to my knowledge, does not have a procurement policy regarding hiring. I don't believe that it's necessary to do a publication for this particular issue. It's not, there is a requirement when the employee is a quote unquote CEO within the county. That would be like the county administrator. And then there's also a requirement that you publish the names of the finalists. This would not qualify. And so if there were somebody that the county had in mind, this board had in mind, I believe you'd be excused of the requirement to publish. Of course, that's always the safest thing to do. But depending on what the course of action is going to be, if you want to start administering this thing between now and October 2nd, you might use up a whole month of trying to publish and hire and whatever. So,
And even if it falls under that, can you just put it on the website and count that? Would that qualify as, you're putting it out there? It may not be technically published.
I would have to refer back to the specific statute because I don't recall what the publication requirement is, if it says it has to be in a paper or if it has to be posted. I just can't recall that requirement off the top of my head. There are a lot of counties who do post on their website, even though the statute specifically requires it be posted in a newspaper. We talked about the reason why that is, but I don't know. I'll have to, let me get back to you because I don't specifically recall what the publication requirement said regarding location of the publication. But in this particular case, it would be great if we have the luxury of time to err on the side of caution. I don't think it's necessarily required.
Thank you.
And that's specifically as it relates right now to this position we're talking, potential petition.
Correct. If you're talking about creating the position, employer, contractor, or otherwise, of grant administrator for the CDRF funds, and it's specific to that, then I think you can do this. Now, if that person then eventually is to transition into the accountant or something, since you have a vacancy there as well, that might be where, when you're filling that void, it would be a good idea to again publish. But I know that one of those individuals who was provided came very highly recommended from the social services accountant. She thought the individual had just moved back here and was very sharp, had a very strong accounting background. I don't know anything about her personally, but that was just what was
We can explore that going forward.
and this would be solely just to do this grant only, nothing else, just this grant.
Correct. And
Good.
so it's like a 6, 7 month job if you figure it goes until March.
Well, according
Probably
to
for
Tony,
5
it
months.
doesn't.
Yeah, but you might have a tail into January, but I don't know if it would
She's
go
saying that-
through to
Okay.
March.
Without some sort of forbearance, we can't go past December 30th.
On the position may go, but you may not be reimbursed after
Right.
December.
Mhm.
Which sets you up a little
But that
bit.
would be a really good opportunity to see the skills of somebody.
We'll have that conversation.
Well, and, and open it up, I mean, I know Tony's been doing a lot of work on it and stuff, but it's whatever you guys decide to do, but I think it has to be a standalone, because I think it's gonna be highly concentrated right now, and they've gotta spend a lot of time on it, so, and then you've gotta come up with what you feel is a adequate salary for that person too. And if you're gonna provide space, or if they work out of their home, or what supervisory things, so I think that's something you guys have to work out on what you see this person doing, and we need to do it ASAP. So it might be, if you can't get it done today, Wednesday, if we don't have anything else pending, we just have a work session and you guys work on coming up with those. Ryan, tell me if I'm going in the
No,
wrong
but-
place on this, but I think a lot of this, we gotta move. We can't wait till, because if you don't meet next Wednesday, then it's the 16th. And we're chunking the days off. So that's the only thing my suggestion is.
Is there anything else on CVR at this point?
Well, when you're talking about not advertising, there may be somebody out there that is very, 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 very qualified, but you guys don't know it.
Mhm.
So if you at least advertise, maybe just 1 week. And just see. I know a woman who would be very qualified. But when I talk to her, her first question is, how much time will it take? We don't know, but we're gonna have to give her an idea. Is this an 80-hour week that you guys expect her to do that? Do you expect her to be in here 8 to 5? Can she do it on her own? She's like I am. She works really best from 10 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock. She's got a doctorate. She's done grant writing. But she won't know about this unless it's advertised.
And I'm not advocating for one way or another. I'm just saying whether it's required, yeah.
And that's just my opinion on, because there's a lot of qualified people out there that, we all know a lot of people, but might be qualified that we're overlooking.
Well, we're gonna have to make some assessment of what the job looks like, what we're gonna pay, and all that, so we can even hold a conversation with these people if they want. So is there anything else on CVR? Now we'll move on. HR, that was just an update from you, Suzanne.
Yeah, I interviewed 3. I'm still, I spent Thursday and Friday at home calling for references. I narrowed it down to 1, and I was just gonna see if it's okay if I offer the job. The only thing is she'll be taking a reduction, and I don't know if she'll take it. And so I wanted to offer the job to that person and see if she's willing to come and go from there. Because it'll probably, if this person, and she said she need at least 2, but probably 3 weeks. So that puts her in the last week of September to even get her in here and on board. So,
And that's your preferred candidate.
yeah. Mhm.
And I guess we probably ought to talk about, and we can't do it here, what the pay range really.
Well,
is.
you gave me a pay range. I
Okay.
just, she would be at the upper, but I don't know if it'll still be quite a reduction from what she's getting. But I think there's other circumstances involved with her that she
may be willing to work.
willing to
under those
go.
circumstances.
But I just need to, she sent me another thing on a PowerPoint she had was working on as a draft for the program she's in right now. I haven't had time to look at it, but very professional, very well. So far, of all the references came in lot higher than the rest of them did. So I feel pretty comfortable. I'm just scared she's not going to take it. So if that's okay with you to go ahead, and then I can confirm if there's a problem. If you're here Wednesday, then you can, if it's with the salary and stuff, then I can bring it back to you and see if there's a negotiation point on it.
When will you be talking to her again?
I wanted to try to call her today.
So
and
we haven't
see-
advertised the meeting for
Thanks, Cindy.
Wednesday yet,
Not yet Wednesday.
but we might have occasionally.
Well, yeah, I think unless you're really speedy.
You got a
Here's my
list,
list.
You didn't put that on the agenda.
I
She
tried
told
to.
you that. She said, I've got all this. Should I put it on there?
Well, no, I mean, like when they send it out.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
If a lot of it is your pending from lots of times back. So it's not
Gotcha.
good.
so what we'd like to do then is if we can get public health out of the way, I guess. Do you have anything else in public health? Is there anything new?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm actually on your agenda, but we did get, I'm working on an email to you now to let you know that the HCC funds that we had to return, they are working on allowing us an extension for that. So that would be about $45,000. And the program manager is going to work closely with the HCC group to make sure that there is a plan in place and that those funds can go to our partner health care organizations to be useful. And that would include a whole other contract. So that'll come before you guys as soon as he has it together.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. Then there's nothing else. There was nothing else on the agenda. Public health was the last deal. Did you have something, Ryan, before we, turn it over to the administrator and her piles of paper?
Let me find my list again. I lost it already. Is there anything? Oh, did you get the resolutions done for the appointments to the library district and the weed district?
I had those on for the 16th, is that right?
Okay, for the 16th to
Yeah.
sign, okay. Okay, the rest of it is just stuff you had asked me to find out about. Had you guys has not passed the MOU for the all hazards MOU? That was pending,
No, we don't want to.
The all hazards MOU?
not the EEC.
Oh, no, the all hazards
That was with
MOU
Alamosa, I thought.
is the one with Alamosa we did. We did go ahead and sign it. That was an MOU that we created. And then we sent it out to the other counties to sign and send back to us. That one Alamosa signed, sent it back to us, and then we just needed to sign it.
And it was on the
And-
agenda for the 12th, and I guess maybe didn't get signed
And-
that day.
And
We
don't
did,
know where that
I think
MOU
we
is.
did sign it. And we should get one from every county, but Alamosa is the only one that we've gotten one from.
Because Art asked me this morning, have we gotten the MOU done?
Oh, if Art was asking about it, then that would be the
Well, yeah.
EEC.
And Nick Sarmiento was proposing that for Cornelius County with his emergency manager. If I remember from your SLB county commissioners meeting, Nick Sarmiento was going to put that together and distribute that. And I've never received a copy from Nick.
Is that the one that they gave us a copy of and you had issues with?
That was the bylaws for, but that there wasn't an MOU or anything with the bylaws. They had provided a draft copy of their bylaws. So unless those are the same and we're using terms interchangeably, but I'm not sure. But
If that's what it is, I don't think that we want to
right,
opt into that.
yeah, and so
But if Art was asking about it, my assumption would be that's what he was
Okay.
talking about.
well, then I would say if we're talking about the all hazards, because that was the SLV all hazards.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of exactly what it was called. I have a copy of it on, and Alamosa had signed it. We had it on the agenda for the 12th of August. And my recollection is that the board approved that contract. John just needed to sign it. Board authorized John to sign it. If it was the
ECC? Is it ECC?
Yeah.
the ECC,
Plan, if that's a EEC plan, I think
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
I have not seen that. I've only seen the proposed bylaws. And again, there were a number of concerns, including but not limited to, how do you prepare bylaws for an entity that doesn't legally exist, for one thing.
Mhm.
And also, there was a reference to a budget, but no indication as to who would be the fiscal agent for that budget. There was, there were a number of issues with that almost a county attorney and I had.
So you're gonna try to find that MOU, and then maybe if we're meeting Wednesday again, we can.
I thought I'd signed it. That I may not have.
Well, if it was done on the 12th, that was, I think I was in here for an hour or two, and I don't know what you guys did.
I will find what we had from Alamos at that day.
I have a copy of the IGA from Alamosa. Is that what we're looking for?
Well, he just talked about an MOU, but it could be an IGA. And he's, if he hasn't, Art hasn't told you, he's out till Wednesday at a mass casualty training in Colorado Springs, and the EMS or the emergency manager from Mineral County is covering for him while he's going to get that training done.
Is it covering or going with?
He told me he was covering.
He's
for him.
covering, and then Eric is supposed to be the backup.
Ryan, I just sent you that IGA again, so it'd be on top, if
Okay,
that's
he told
what it
me they
is.
were
we're
I've got
looking
it
for.
right here.
Terry
Okay.
Weatherall and Art were both going.
He told me Terry was gonna be his backup
Yeah.
and that Eric could be the backup to Terry if Terry had to go.
And that
somewhere.
but that was whenever he went to help his dad?
No, and he
And
told me.
We're
this
talking about a
morning.
mass casualty train,
Yeah.
airplane wrecks. It's the airport.
Oh, I hadn't heard about
He,
that.
that's what he told me this morning, so. You know, county would cover. So.
Do you want me to just email this to Bobby for her to reprint and
Yeah.
we can get a
Sign-
signature?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would
So
be
while you're
great.
doing that, what else do you have on your list?
Okay, I'll just start down here. Let's see. And maybe before you leave, I can run out and see if I can get a hold of this, to the person on the HR and see where we're going. We have to update our participation agreement for the retirement plan. It's called CRA, but I always knew it as CORA. And one of those things, it's a plan that where you fill it out and it's basically you say employees must work 12 months before they're on it, at least work 35 hours. Eligibility period is 12 months. Let's see. I think one of the other things that came up today, we would have a 4% match to their withdrawal. They can do do a extra voluntary amount, and that they have a 5-year vesting plan, and that's what we've always had before. Then the thing, and the one they have here was signed by Dennis Murphy in 12. So is it okay if I go ahead, prepare it as it was, because I don't think you've changed anything on the
I don't know,
retirement
I
plan?
kind of think that archival thing is kind of, yes.
I think, I don't have any desire to change any of that. I don't see a need to change it. So I would say that we should just go ahead and keep everything the
Things the
same.
same. And if it is, I will, because they wanted me to call in and talk to them about it. And if it's everything that follows what Mr. Murphy, Commissioner Murphy signed on the 12th of April of, the 4th of April of 2012, I will get it prepared. And if John comes in sometime, you know, if we aren't meeting next Wednesday, if I can get it signed and get it in. One thing in here, and I running through real fast, in fact, we had one employee call today that wanted to withdraw his plans because he needed the money right now. And a loan or taking out retirement money to pay your current bills, we've never allowed on the basis of it is a retirement plan. And if everybody uses it when they have credit card debt or coming to Christmas, it's a loan, they have to pay it back, but it's still, it's here to give people a retirement. And if you start letting them out, the consensus of the board all the time I was here, no, this isn't a place you can go borrow against. If you, the only way the money is distributed is either by death or leaving the county. And I throw that out because that's one of the questions that comes up every so often is, I need some extra money, or I want this, I want to buy a car or something like that. All of a sudden you're the loaning, the retirement plan is the loaning agencies.
And I would also agree with that. I don't know if because of COVID, if there should be, but really all of our employees still have their job. It's not like they don't have their job. It's not like circumstances have really changed for any of them. And so I wouldn't see that we should change that rule.
This is a defined contribution plan, and it's not a 401k per se. Okay. If it were a 401k, you could borrow from it. But in terms of borrowing from a retirement plan, I assume that decision rests either with
Well, they've
the
had it
underwriter
in
or
there in
us.
the past. I don't know if it's in the current one. And there's been a lot of discussion about that, but the boards in the past have said no. You're not gonna do it.
When's that due?
Well,
Until
they
the-
have been asking twice now. We have to have it done by the end of September, so I can get the form down and see what it is, and if there's any more questions, I can bring it up to you. But I just wanted to get it on your radar that if there's something that is, you want to leave it, the plan, or the way the plan's been, I'll just go ahead and meet with, call them, draw it down, and then fill it out, and then if it's okay for John to sign it with no changes, then we can move ahead and not have it brought back here.
I'd move that John sign it with no changes.
And we approve the existing plan and we just renew it basically as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
John.
Next thing. The annual certification from the health department for Summitville mine site. And here is the form that needs to be filled out and signed. See, this is how I haven't been involved. It is, I don't know who wants to fill out this one-page thing and get it sent. I think John mentioned it back in August 12th when I was here to help get it done. And I'm going, I don't know what's been done with the Summitville plan. So it'd take a lot more time for me to figure it out than if you answer the questions there and have an answer to it. So.
Done?
Yeah, think.
She still has a pile. Actually, she's got two piles. I'm thinking
And this is the
we're not
website.
working off the pile.
No, these are things that have been.
Okay, this needs to be attested by the county clerk. Does that go down there? Okay.
And that was the
That's the
all hazards.
All
Okay.
hazards, yeah.
And it's now with Deanne, so
And she's gonna sign it and it'll be back to you.
back to me, okay, and I can give it to Art. Okay, I'm trying to keep track of this so we don't have any more problems.
And this one, I think, Ryan, since we're the fiscal agent, are we supposed to hold on to this?
I would, yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll send it back down, but I think that needs to stay with us.
Okay,
Or send a copy to Jeannie Borrego.
I'll probably do that. Well, or make sure,
Well, Alamosa's gonna need a copy of this.
Yeah, Alamos is gonna need a copy of it back.
And it's
Okay.
certified by the clerk.
okay, because we have Alamos and we have Rio Grande. And then, so this basically falls under Jean. So maybe I'll just make a copy for our files and then get it to Jean to continue on.
Mhm.
The problem I have with signing this and filling it out is we have absolutely no control over what the water treatment guys are doing. So we're certifying that we didn't dig a hole. There was no construction of any building structure or facility. Nothing that impairs the growth of vegetation.
And who are we certifying this to?
CDPHE.
Well,
But
basically the,
CDPHE is the one that's
I
in
know
charge
that.
of it.
I don't care.
well, is the water treatment plant isn't all on county-owned property, is it? Is it on state property?
Everything's on county property
This is all
now.
county. There's no state property up there.
Because I've never seen it all the years we've had that property that they ever asked us to sign anything that was being.
Well,
run
it
up there.
got changed over, it was under the control of EPA, and now it's under CDPHE.
Part of it is we haven't seen anything like this until we signed the deed transferring property. Okay?
Okay.
And then we no more than did that, and all of a sudden I am now becoming familiar with a Justin LeBeau, who I've never
Is
heard
that
of.
the attorney?
No, he's a solid waste
Oh.
manager, data manager. And
I don't know unless you just,
I'll call and ask, and Mary Boardman is the one that is managing the site up there. But interestingly enough, Mark, this is just an aside. Mark assured us that he was going to stay involved in this because it was kind of his baby, even after he got everything done.
He's out.
He faded.
Yep.
How'd you know that?
Well, of course he would.
Yeah, I mean, literally,
It's not too
after
hard.
they got it done, it's just, so Mark, are you still helping us out? Like you said, well, it's really Mary's project, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So
Not
Okay,
shocking.
so next.
we haven't done anything on that yet, but that's
He's gonna
okay.
Look over on, he's just looking over to you, and then he's gonna come back to you.
I
You
can
said
do
you
something
were
well
following
that
me.
doesn't bother Brian. Just a question, I got an email saying why, who is handling the census, sees how the state of Colorado's only had 67.4% return. And of Rio Grande County, we have only had 49.2%. Who is doing Rio Grande County?
Jean.
And where are we at on that?
Well, we're at the fact that we can't do door to door because of COVID, so maybe we can file for a
They've been
lawsuit.
doing door to door. They've been
Yeah,
to
they
my
have-
door.
They have started doing it now, but that's why we were behind.
Okay.
And I don't know, we put out all the signs and banners and flyers and everything we could during the early part of it, but
Okay, well, I just wanted to relay that to you.
the other problem with that, Suzanne, if somebody needs a good answer on this, is just typical of government business up there. They give us a deadline of May 30th,
Right,
extended June 30th, extended July something, extended to August, now it's extended until September. Well, everybody, when we thought it was done, that everybody kind of pulled back. We were having our meetings for recap, and then they give us new dates, do some other little project with it, put up the different signs or the, stuff. So, I mean, it's,
mhm.
they want to know why their numbers are wrong. They ought to look in there.
Is that the state that's doing that? Or is it feds?
It's the feds that does, yeah.
That
it's
moving the
coming down.
deadline,
Yeah.
moving the goalpost.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. I found a retention policy done in 2012. I found it today. I haven't had time to look at it. I just wanted to let you know I'm in trying to find some stuff for you on the recording and that, but I just haven't had time to do that. Bobby was going to check our backup, our iDrive is backed up to Carbonite, which is like a cloud.
Mhm.
So our iDrive is all backed up. The G drive, I think, is where the recordings are. And she was going to check and see if and how much it might cost to make sure that there's a daily backup of the G drive or whatever drive where the recordings of your minutes are, so that we can make sure that they aren't lost.
Well,
Why
what's
don't
the,
we just put them on iDrive?
Well, we can. I mean, the only one that can get to our iDrive is whoever.
Administrative staff.
Yeah, in the staff in here. I don't know if you can get to, I don't think
We
you can
can.
get to the iDrive.
But I don't know that we need to,
no, we don't even know what's on it. Like, for instance, that's where the bylaws for the airport was.
And that's where the personnel, the descriptions, job descriptions, the retention or the, my book was on the iDrive. I don't know what all else, but it has quite a bit of just policies and stuff like that. I think the handbook's on there.
Yeah, which that we should have access to if we're gonna have access to anything.
Yeah, but if you want to have all of it, whatever is in G drive up to this point, move to the I drive, then I can get Kenny probably to just do a change over to that.
There is something, I think, isn't there one of the drives or something that WSB backs up daily?
That's the carbonite one.
Oh, that's the carbonite. Oh,
That's the I
okay.
drive.
Okay, well, could we just have them back up the other drive also, or?
Yeah, that's what I was
You
gonna
gonna
have
call?
Bobby check
Yeah,
to see if he could just, when it hits to do the backup of the I drive, it would also pull the G drive. On they have backup here for the financial stuff too, but we can just keep checking on that and make sure we just, whatever way we do it, it might be nice just to have the I drive so you don't have to, the G drive for recordings of meetings, just so you don't have to go through and somebody doesn't accidentally delete something on, the only thing you can do on G drive is put in records of the meetings. So
Well,
Okay, but what's on G drive now?
records only, your meetings,
That's it.
as far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that would work.
Yeah, and I told her just try to find out if Kenny can do it, and last time I knew when I was here, carbonite wasn't that
I know.
expensive, so.
Part of the discussion we had on the retention stuff, before you came in, we were talking about the Zoom versus the other recordings.
Mhm.
And I don't know how you access Zoom recordings once they're recorded.
They're stored on that computer.
No, what software accesses it?
I think it's this, I think it just goes back through the same Zoom app or
In
something.
other words, we don't know.
It can be opened on a player, because I've watched them back on my.
You have to have a player for it.
Right.
Which
like- so like a-
player is like a standard software on
yeah,
every
It
computer.
can be like a media player or a Realtek or one of those. I'm not sure exactly what
So
opens up.
right now, we think it can be opened with some media players. I know that different systems have different media players. But the other part of it is Zoom is not secure, not hard secured. Right now, people are accessing Justin Ratcliffe's recordings of our Zoom meetings on YouTube and Facebook. But if we want something secure that's hasn't been tampered with or potentially tampered with, we almost have to have it over here on this audio system that we have with a protocol, whether it's a G drive, I drive, something that's and a separate for executive sessions recording that is held by Ryan for the required period. And the Zoom is fungible at best, and obviously not all of them were transferred in a timely fashion to whatever drive.
Well, and that's what, I don't know, there's a little,
Thumb drive?
that you put in one and load it down and then out of there and then.
Yeah, there's mechanisms for doing, you could probably hardwire, you could probably USB it across, but.
But your concern is what's out there right now, somebody can go in and tamper or
Sure.
whatever. I don't know if you go out, how you stop that, other than if somebody starts saying that you did this or that, say, here's the official recorded
We
copy.
need to have an official one,
Mhm.
period, is my view, and we paid for this system for that reason.
And that's why, if you get a backup, we could just, it'll be backed up on G drive or wherever. And we just do it. And then if, you can't stop them from tinkering with
Oh, they can do
things.
whatever they want out there, but what I want to make sure is that our official records are secure.
Yeah.
For the
Well,
required
and
period.
we also have the recording from the Zoom. And so if you say that they can tamper with them, they're not tampering with our recording.
Except that it
something
was
is being
sitting right there
tampered
on that laptop.
Yeah.
Which is not,
Except I think it
was not being transferred over.
And I
to
don't
the
know
hard
if it's been
system.
transferred.
Well,
That's
whatever.
one thing we've got to get to be sure, because I don't know how to do all the transfer or all that. But I'll specifically look at that, and then maybe I might have to get, if Bobby and them don't know how to do it, get somebody to train me or get it written up so we can
Do
it. Okay.
For the record, Brian is going to check on this particular document from CDPHE references the wrong covenant.
Yes, it references a May 2018 covenant, which I'm assuming is the first amended covenant, but if you'll recall, back in June or July, John executed the second amended covenant, which was part of the land exchange. And so the date that should be referenced is the most recent covenant, which should have been signed in July, I think, of 2020. So I need to contact him because those conditions are largely the same, but slightly different.
Now, see, this came out July 31st.
Right.
And it was just a matter of days after they received their recorded copy of the new deeds.
I don't think the right hand knew what the left hand was doing.
Ooh.
That's
Oh, okay. And she had more on her list, I guess. You're next.
Okay. My next thing, do you want to start tackling the airport lease, and then Cindy Hill, I guess, sent you an email too on Thursday, August 27th in reference to some zoning and changing of easements, and I haven't read it totally, but is there anything that the lease ready to go again or not?
The lease not ready to go today,
Okay.
no.
So I'll just table this, and I think this is on you guys each got this memo, so you can look at it, and then I'll just put it back for whenever we meet again.
Ryan, I'll call you about the airport lease. Had some thoughts on commercial activities.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me get this down so I can remember. Okay. Put that done. Here is the information on the letter you were going to write to CIC terminating the contract. Yes, it was totally paid. The $17,385 was paid in January for that
That
contract.
covers the whole year.
It covers the whole year. And the thing that, and I don't know if Debbie's tied up right now or not. One of the things that Debbie brought up, that WSB, there's some more history stuff that we want transferred. And let me see if I can get her in here to talk about it. It might have to be that we'll have to hire WSB to do it, because I don't know if CIC will do it. And if WSB can't get here in time before the contract, before that letter needs to go out, she needs okay to go ahead with that.
Ryan, what was that, 90-day notice on that?
Yeah, it was a 90 days, so I think we were going to try to send that out prior to October 1st.
And is that what the 90 days was referring to, was that we had to give them 90 days notice before we got off? I was kind of thinking the 90 days was from, just my memory from the past was that whenever we got it, that we had 90 days to approve it, that we could back out within that 90 days.
I think it was 90 days notice to terminate the agreement. Was my recollection. Now, it's been since Wednesday since I last looked at that, and I just
Okay.
casually perused it while we were sitting here. So,
But the world can't hear you. Here, John, we've got a spare one over here.
So basically, what you had talked to me about, Debbie, was that we need to, before you would feel more comfortable before we actually sent this letter out to CIC, that you find out if WSB can do the history backup and how much it's going to cost to get that moved over before CIC closes us down.
Right, I talked to Kenny I had Bobby call him and see, because I'm concerned about our history. We're not going to have that much history on
2
our
years?
new system. It's just going to be a monthly or yearly totals. It's not going to be actual transaction history. So the only place we can look at history would be in on our own system, CIC. So we have to have that available for us. So I had Bobby call Kenny to see what we could do to get that information moved over from, because right now it's stored on a server farm, wherever CC has it. We would have to get it transferred to a on-premises type, our server here, to keep the
And
history.
Then, would we have to have like their program for that?
We own the
information?
software because we paid
Okay.
for it, so that is our
Okay, so
software.
so that'll work. All we need to do is just have it on, okay.
But Kenny recommended that I contact them before the contract got canceled, because they'll maybe charge us less to get it, to help us get it
Oh,
transferred
okay.
over. So I asked him if our server is adequate to hold the information, and he says it depends on the spec requirements from CIC. So I would need to call them and see what their specs are. If it's a SQL server, our current one allows SQL server, so we can move it over to our Tyler server, and they can house both of the Tyler encode and CIC.
SQL server? Is that what you're talking about?
SQL server.
And is our server big enough to hold both of them?
He said it would. He's 99% sure it would hold both of them, because we'd only use CIC for looking up history. We're not going to, use it for accounting or anything like that. So he recommended that we do before we canceled our contract.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You don't need authorization to do that. just
No,
do
I
it.
just,
Yeah.
if it's gonna sort of push back but getting the letter
Mhm.
going, we can.
I can
see.
call him and see what the procedure is to do that, to have them help us.
CIC help you?
I'm hoping they would, but I don't know. But if they find out we're leaving them, they might not want to help. I don't know.
That's kind of been the fear, is how they
Well,
would
we own
react.
the software and it's our data.
Right.
I assume they have some liability if
They might
don't
just charge,
access
they'll
it.
probably charge us a little bit more to get that information for the services that they're going to provide for us.
Now, we're gonna keep Tyler in an in-house server,
Mhm.
so we're gonna have to grow our server.
No, we already
populations.
bought.
We've just
Some,
thought,
over time, we're gonna have to probably grow our server population.
I don't know. He thought it would hold it since we're not using it to actually do accounting with the CIC. It's just to
No,
hold
no,
our
I'm
history.
talking about Tyler.
Tyler, in the future, in 10 years, that we may need a bigger
Yeah,
server.
probably, yeah, I don't know. Probably might, because we're going to have more information on there. So we probably
And
maybe,
is Tyler gonna be stored on the cloud somewhere also?
no.
So how do we back it up? They do that at Walsmith and Bateman?
Mhm.
So that's the cloud then. For us.
Well, it's not really it's really a server underneath, underneath Bobby's desk.
No, but
But
it's,
does it nightly go up to the Carbonite account, like a cloud account of? do we have it
Probably,
there?
but I think Bobby actually has little tape drives or something that she
Actually,
puts in
tapes
and
it.
out.
there's a tape. If the courthouse burns down, all your
We would
records, are
have
gone.
it somewhere else, I believe.
That would have to be a
I
cloud
would like to
Take-
storage.
say maybe on the cloud
take it
somewhere, but I
home
don't
or
know where.
something. When I was here, we had a tape that we'd alternate taking home or whatever.
But I would want to make sure that we have some offsite storage.
And I believe WSB does that for us, but you'd have to confirm that with Bobby. She knows more about that than I do.
And while you're here, there was some discussion about the executive order saying that there's a chance that the FICA could be a holiday withholdings for the employees, and that it looked like employers can say, no, we're not going to offer the holiday because you will have to pay it back. And since the employees are hired and getting a paycheck, it's easier to take it out of their paycheck at that time than saying, no, for 3 months or 4 months, you don't have to pay FICA, but come January, February, you got to pay X number of dollars back.
And kind of like I said before, their jobs have not changed. There's nobody in the county who's working less hours because of COVID. I guess we did kind of go through a time where, some people were working from home, but I really don't believe there was anybody who worked less hours or who was getting a smaller paycheck. So I don't see that giving them this
extra money. that-
benefit.
Well, it's
is
not even a
gonna ha- it's
benefit.
not
They
even a
have to
benefit.
pay,
Yeah.
it back.
All it is a
next year.
penalty if you have to pay it back.
If you don't pay it back by April of next year, you're gonna have to pay a penalty on it.
And so I think we're better off to not offer it.
I-
The purpose was not to give them more money because of COVID. The purpose was to stimulate the economy because of COVID, so they would spend that money. That's, so it's not about,
But then what happens in January,
well,
February,
and
and
they got a problem
March?
down the road, but that
Mhm.
was
And
just,
they'll be up here in the HR
Yep.
department. Why are you?
but we do have the option to
Uh,
opt out.
That's my understanding, that you have the option to opt out.
And many businesses are.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
No, I don't think you
Okay.
need it right now because they haven't really officially come down with it, or you haven't seen.
Well,
them.
actually, I think he's already signed the executive order, but he can't make the decision to not tax anybody, but he can make the decision to defer payment on it. And that's what it basically is. He's giving a tax holiday, but it has to be paid back, because that's all he can do.
Whenever that time comes, I still say we
Well,
shouldn't.
and,
Because that's a penalty more than a benefit.
It's gonna be hard for them they'll be paying double next year trying to pay it back.
Yeah, and that's not being helpful at all.
Yeah.
if you want, I don't know if you guys want to make a motion right now, and then if it comes down the pike, it's fine. We already have a motion, whether one
Okay.
way or the way to do
I
it.
would move that we do not do that.
Second.
Okay, is that for permanent? Because the program's gonna change.
Well, I move that we don't do whatever it was she was explaining,
The
the deferred,
How do you put that in the
FICA.
minutes?
the deferred federal, for the.
The tax
Social
holiday.
It's for the
Security,
FICA, it's
the
the
FICA
FICA
tax
the FICA
holiday
tax.
that we do not offer that.
As
to.
of whatever day it is. As proposed as of today. Because it's gonna change.
It's gonna change, the executive order is gonna change.
No, the executive order may not, but the program will, policies will.
For Social Security.
Yeah, it's gonna change.
They're gonna come up with some other
There'll be
thing.
something
Yeah.
else. Okay, so as long as we
that
understand what it is we're
particular-
voting on. so I'm trying
That
to-
particular
time.
thing. Okay, should we vote?
We discussed it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, carries. Okay, number 10.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. Well, you didn't have time to look for that camper topper for the coroner
I haven't done that
to see if we could move some money around on that, to go ahead and accept that bid or to delay it until we know what closer to the end of the
Well,
year.
Didn't we decide that we'd have Stephen come in at our next meeting and have that discussion?
Okay.
Is it on your list?
No,
On the list?
I will put it down here that he needs to be on the September 16th meeting, right?
Yes.
Yes,
And he needs kind of a heads up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
he knows. He watched the meeting.
Well, he may not, but he needs a formal heads up.
Yeah.
Because he's
Okay.
got another job.
I'll
He
make
has to
sure
schedule
on
his days
that.
off accordingly.
Okay, and then I have here that there's two originals of the MOU concerning the Del Norte linear walking path. Please sign one and return it to Del Norte. What is that? That was one thing I found either on the computer or else.
So this was the MOU that we were rescinding the walking trail agreement that we had where we were we had passed a resolution assigning our interest to the town of Del Norte. And I guess I need to go back to June minutes, but my recollection is that we already discussed this. We worked with Gene Farish on this, and they had signed this agreement that we prepared. This does not appear to contain your signature, John. Do you recall if you had ever signed it?
I don't recall signing it. I'm not sure where we were with it. I mean, they proposed it, didn't they? Or did we?
Gene and I worked on it together.
Okay, so they ran it by their group.
Right.
And then I think about that time D Mountain was
Right.
sniffing around, so.
And is that the one that Patty was in the other day wanting to know if we had conveyed it? Okay.
So this, I think, needs to be done regardless of what the board ultimately decides with that property, because
do that.
the assignment had already been in place, and then had done nothing with it and still have done nothing with it. And so I think it still makes sense to rescind. I thought you had already taken action, but I think probably the safest thing to do would be to reauthorize John, since it's been so long, to
Okay,
execute.
I
that.
move that we reauthorize John to execute the rescinding of the,
Is this a second?
Yeah.
of
Second.
the
Oh, wait a minute.
thing,
Trail.
whatever it is.
MOU
Of this
rescinding
document.
the assignment of the GOCO grant agreement.
We got a motion second, all in favor?
I,
Okay.
And then I'll just.
Now, what date do you want on here, since this was 6/10 of 2020? I guess we did
Might
it
as well
today,
do it
right?
Today, yeah.
No, I just need to send a copy over. to
Yeah.
them. Okay.
Okay.
Like I say, I'm
Stay down.
finding things and not knowing exactly where they're at. And is Randy or who's gonna get a hold of Sky High or Monte Vista about coming in to ask for talk about the building permit?
Just, I got a heads up when I had my time out just a minute ago that they brought a check into us today to pay for the building permit. So
so is that question off the table?
No.
no, it's not off the table, but we'll need to, if you want me to respond, I can respond to Forrest to tell him that we need to have him come in. Will that be?
If that's still their request, yes, I think that's
Okay.
what.
Well,
If they've changed their mind and don't want to request that, then I guess it's not, but
okay.
if
Well,
they,
I'll ask Forrest what their deal is. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and that, let's see. That's tabled, and we're gonna do that. There was these back up. And I haven't had time to look at Arts to see if, and get with him to talk about salary, if there's enough salary to move to buy a vehicle.
Vehicle.
Yeah, so, he's not gonna be back for a couple days, and I don't know if it's and then, what else I have is, on September 10th is the health pool meeting, and it's Zoom. You'll be attending it. Is there anyone else that we need to send reservations in on that?
I usually just, last year when we did that, Trish went up.
that they wanted the administrator and Jean.
Yeah,
And so I don't know if you want to attend that,
Well,
or
See,
you
on
gonna
the
have
10th,
time?
I can, let's see.
Well,
what
that's a
is the-
Thursday, isn't
Are
it?
they gonna do a Zoom meeting?
Yes, it's a Zoom meeting, and I'm sure it'll start at 8 or 9. And I might or not, I have bank board that day. or loan
Well,
board,
yeah, I
whichever.
think that's a Thursday. Well,
Yeah.
Jean, you did it last year and it went along fine, and is there any reason to have two people?
No. No,
Have they requested the administrator? to
Well,
correct
that usually it's been the HR person or whoever works with the health
Mhm.
package, and then whoever, if you're on a board or a commissioner. I mean, I was always on the board, so I went, and I usually took HR if we had an HR person. But, you know, that
But-
was it.
Do you think Jean can handle it by himself?
You're really gonna ask me that?
Can we shut the mics off, please?
Is there hand motions?
It's the biggest part of it will be setting where we already know we're at, and
Yeah.
then the election of officers reinstatement. So,
So it's- I think Jean can probably handle it.
thank you. Suzanne.
If your
You're welcome.
applicant accepts, wouldn't it make sense for that person to also?
If they are here by that time, I would have the HR person probably just sit in if you do
Sure.
it from here, or should
Yeah.
you call,
Yeah.
call in. So I just wanted to bring that to
What
you.
day is that?
The 10th
September.
of September. And I don't have actually a time on it. The other thing I have here is, whatever happened to
It's
that
at,
lease?
it's actually at 10 o'clock.
What are you looking for, Suzanne?
Did I get back the lease?
Draft airport?
No, here it is, right here. I just want to be sure no, the walking trail. Then you've been getting notices on the Monday, September 28th is the San Luis Valley County Commissioners meeting. And this is tabled, this is tabled, this is tabled. Okay. I had something on there and I'm trying to get back to find it. Somewhere popped up that CCI has a Colorado revenue study for financial impact. And I put it on my notes now. I can't find. Did you guys ever see anything that CCI was wanting a financial survey they were doing on the impact of COVA for you? Okay, I'll quit looking for it again. Okay, we've got that. The only other thing I really have pending is if you want me to give me a second to try to get a hold of the one person I had for HR and see if she's coming, or do you want to give me, if she says no, she wants more than 50,000, that you up it a somehow. What I had told her, when she talked to me, she said, well, I'll have to think about it. I says, well, maybe if you'd be willing to accept it and then come and you're working, that we could budget it for the following year for a slight increase, but we sort of need to know for budget time what you'd have to have and whether the commissioners would be willing to do it.
Do you
So
want
it's
to
sort of,
discuss this now?
you know, you can, whenever.
I think if you're talking about the position generally, you can.
No, I'm
discuss
talking
it.
about the salary.
Well, the salary pertinent to the position generally, as opposed to a particular individual and his or her personnel matters, you can still do it in a public session. I don't know if that discussion would be an increase in salary would only be for this particular person, or are you asking for a pay range for that salary position?
I already have a
Or for
pay
that.
range,
Okay.
but I mean, right now, she would take about $11,000 decrease. And I don't know if she'll come for that. I don't right now recommend that you go that high because it would put it a lot higher than some people that are department heads that have been here for quite a few years.
I guess my advice, I think, would be to talk to that person, and then if she wants to negotiate, then to do that in an executive session for personnel matters, but not to necessarily discuss it right now.
Okay.
Well, particularly while we're still in negotiations and we're on Zoom.
Right.
Okay.
So are you going to call her while we wait and see if she's gonna?
Well,
come in,
if you
or-
want to, I
Do we
can.
need
I
to?
don't know if I'll get her right now, but.
Well,
Another day?
a lot of times you offer people a job, they don't say, oh yeah, they want to think about it a day or so
Yeah.
anyway. So I'm thinking we probably won't be able to do it today.
We're gonna be here past 4, and I need to go grab keys before I get locked out of the office and have no way to get home. So
Well, that was the last thing,
Okay.
other than you tabled, and I don't know if Jody was. putting
What's
it back
that?
to you
We
on
tabled what?
Commodities, the
Commodities.
commodities.
Commodities,
She sent out an
Jody got
email.
that taken care of.
Oh, okay, so that's all I have on my list, I think. And everything else is, I think I can go, and if you're comfortable with whatever you want to talk about, adjourn and talk, if I can call, and I don't think we need Ryan here, if
I need
you
him.
need him, that we can go ahead and just, I can call her real fast, see if I can get a hold of her, and if not, then it's gonna have to wait till,
Tomorrow, so.
yeah, and
That
then
sounds-
I guess if she comes back, I can call each one of you instead of waiting till, I don't know if you want to come in again on Wednesday or wait till, if something comes next week that you schedule. Well, we still have to know what you're going to do about CDR, if we're going to put ad out or
Or you
what.
we're gonna have an executive session here in a minute. And we'll talk about some of this.
Without Ryan.
No, with Ryan.
He's gonna go get his keys and come back.
He's getting his
Okay.
keys.
Okay, so then we can talk about, if you give me instructions to get out an ad or whatever you're gonna do on this, because it's just the employment one. I do have a big stack of public health resumes. I don't have a lot of their applications, but I have 3 or 4 public health director applications that filled out the application. A lot of Indeed that have just shown interest, but not the application yet. I've got a couple administrators applications, and I don't know if I have any accountant, but if you want to stick around and just look through the pile and sort of start looking at them, if you want me to, if we have enough to call for interviews, that you want to start sitting down and going through interviews on any of those that we have. And then you need to set a salary range. A lot of them are coming in, leaving salaries that are $100,000 to $106,000 a year, but they're out of state. So, whatever you guys like to do, those are the things I have pending, trying to get staff hired.
Do we have anything else before we adjourn and go into executive session?
I'll move that we adjourn
And go into executive session,
into executive session for personnel.
personnel and legal advice. Yes, whatever that section is. My computer died on me, so I don't have it up.
And mine's down to 1%, so I shut it off. For personnel and
Hmm?
legal advice.
There's a section. Do you have the copy of the agenda in front of you, Suzanne?
No.
The printed
It's
agenda?
okay. Deanne knows what the number is.
Well, we're
Oh, you've got it. That's
we're
all you
being
were looking
recorded,
for.
so let's say it.
Oh, okay. For conference with county attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice is under section 24-6-402, 4B, and for personnel matters, 24-6-402, 4F.
And we're adjourning at 3:57.
54. That clock's not correct.
Why is it here?
If you use your phone, it's more accurate.
Okay, adjourn at 54. Do we have the motion?
Second.
Motion is second. We're adjourned into the executive session. We'll get you the information on when we reconvene. Yeah. Okay, and people are taking a break.